Are you comfortable? Awesome. Well, I'm thrilled to talk to all of you. We heard just now that a lot of media companies are muddling through. And I'm glad to see like most of you come from the online space, so actually you're part of the winners already. Since print is declining, online is winning, but still the fight for the right monetization model is kind of like a experiment. I heard a couple of people here mentioning the ad blocker plus strategy you chose. How has it been going the past 2 weeks? I know there's been some counter developments. Maybe you can give us some insights on why you did that. What's your big picture on that, and like what's going to happen?
Well, overall, it's going great. We decided that we are not going to accept people blackmailing us, which is basically what it is, because it's not a model where people decide, look, we don't like the ads. And I understand users who don't like all of the ads. I understand people who think it makes our sites too slow. I understand all that, but the business model of those people basically is blocking ads and then coming to us and asking for a payoff and telling us we can whitelist you if you pay us money, and that is nothing but blackmailing, and blackmailing only works as long as people play along. And since we are pretty big, we decided we shouldn't go along with that, and we should resist that. And I always compare it to a fruit store. If you have a fruit store and no one is inside, you can't really blame anyone for stealing an apple. But as soon as you put someone inside, which is basically what we did, who says, look, you can't steal from us and you can't blackmail us, it becomes an offense. And that's what's basically happened. And AO is completely freaking out. They are going to court. They are playing all kind of tricks. But we made clear what's our business model. We made clear what we want, what we don't want. And now every time they try to undermine that, they are basically going against a declared model. Before we had a non-declared model, now we have a declared model. And we're very happy with how it's going. We're very happy with the numbers. Obviously, we're seeing some decline in traffic, but it's worthless traffic, basically. We are seeing a huge upswing in valuable traffic we can monetize. And we are seeing the numbers of people using ad blockers going down, tail spinning, basically. It used to be, everyone knows those numbers. It used to be between 25 and 30%. And now we should be around 8 or 9%, something like that. So, we are always up for a fight if we think it's right. So we don't mind AO freaking out. And it's going great, actually. And I can only recommend to, fall in line.
And that was my follow-up question to Frank and all the others. You being part of the Axel Springer family with Gründerszene too.
90%, yeah.
I guess that you are also watching what's going on with the build thing.
Actually, I find it really strange that when it comes to talk about the future of media, when we talk about ad blocking and muddling through and try to transport something that we did for like 70 years to the next 70 years, I must say I'm a little bit afraid when I hear something like that. That doesn't mean that I have the solution for the next 2 or even for the next year. But I think we need to take some major steps into the future. I have to tell you one thing. I spent 4 months in the Silicon Valley and I visited lots of startups. And in the Silicon Valley, that's very good. There are even some media startups. You won't find that in Germany, except for Gründerszene. And I talked to a guy and I asked him, my first question was, how will look articles in 5 years? And he said, Frank, there will be no articles anymore. And that was good for me. That was enough for me. And I went back to my office in Palo Alto and I thought about this, and I think the big issue we have to face is we tend to think in old categories when it comes to content, channels, transportation of news. I think this is everything I said is like old-fashioned, and we have to rethink it. And what you said was right. People like cards. Yeah, maybe this is a way to transport articles in the future. But the main thing we have to think about is content. And I think we actually making so many mistakes. Content is still like content 20 years ago. Politics, economy, cultural, the same thing. I learned it 30 years ago. It's still the same thing. Is this really the mirror of what is happening outside this building? I don't think so.
Kevin, you're playing around with the iPad, and I see cards. And as the editor-in-chief of the Handelsblatt Global Edition, you probably also have a global perspective on this. So I'm just curious to see hear your point on the trends in media.
Thanks, Miriam. I'd like to second Frank's statements about when it comes to content, we're still thinking in old terms. The technology has changed. That's clear. We all know that. Silicon Valley is changing our industry like it's changing every industry right now. But our industry was dying out, so to speak, before Silicon Valley caught on to us. Readers were literally dying out. The people who are coming in don't read newspapers, or in the common forms we were used to, and which are companies which are basically monopolies set up to like a utility to milk a certain market. That model didn't exist anymore. Now we're thrown into an uncertain future. We're trying to think, which way do we go forward? And the response in the content, like you say, Frank, is we'll take that paper newspaper and we'll put it up on the internet. We'll just do the same thing here. Look, it's just like you used to. That's what everybody pretty much does. All the big organizations do that. I would argue we need to think even more radically different, because people have rejected that form. Sure, they want the variety of a newspaper. They want to be exposed to different ideas, etc. But the internet itself allows for people to indulge themselves, and so that they never have to be exposed to another idea. And that's a tough environment to operate in when you're offering the big picture of the world. Just to wrap it up, I think our newspaper, of course you're going to expect this, is one of the most innovative, because our model is radically different from any of the others you've heard tonight. What we do at Handelsblatt Global is we take the content of Germany's leading financial paper and we publish it in English. That doesn't mean we translate it. I'm not Google Translate. If you've read Google Translate, you know how poorly that reads, frankly. So it's an immense effort. It involves people on other continents in places like Sydney and San Diego, etc. And we come out at the same time as the deutschsprachige Handelsblatt. And that's interesting in itself, because if you wanted to go to Paris and you wanted to know what's going on, but you can't read Le Monde, now you can, so to speak, in Germany through us. The other play that we make that's different is we say less is more. We don't put the entire world on the paper, because people are basically overwhelmed with information. The internet is, we're trying to screen it out basically now. People are running away from information. So what we do is we provide 10 to 15 of the most important articles that people who care about Germany need to know. And we save them all the rest, all the domestic squabbles, all that stuff. That's good here, it plays good, and Die Zeit and Bild and stuff, but the people outside, they know that 90% of the news is BS anyway. The real 10% we give to you. And I think that's the kind of the future for the model going forward. We need to be kind of a Sherpa for people in a confusing kind of information universe. But I'm monopolizing, please.
Well, I mean, we're in a slightly different position, right? We're not a print company. We're in television, and television is, in Germany at least, television consumption is growing. People have never watched as much television as they do these days, and that's interesting. That's good for us, but that's also something that we don't, take for granted, and that's why we have innovation as well. Online video is important, and also the combination of online and television, and how one triggers the other. Right. I mean, if you have big live shows, put videos online before the show, it drives traffic, or it actually increases consumption on television and all these kinds of things. But I think what's important is if you have good and relevant content, then people will consume it. There is a demand for media in general, right? It can be. The question is, will it be in print? Will it be in linear television? Will it be video on demand? Whatever. It doesn't matter, but there is a demand for entertainment, for news, for all these kinds of things. And we need to figure out a way of, quenching that thirst for information and entertainment. And as long as we think that way, I think there will be, relevance for the media companies out there in the world. And also, I think, in particular, as it is so easy these days to publish stuff on the internet, it's important that you have quality media that makes sure that it's curated, that it's put into perspective, and that there's slow medium that makes sure that there is some kind of commentary around these things. So it's very, very important.
When you talk about good and relevant content, I mean, just to explain, you're the managing director and founder of ProSiebenSat.1 Accelerator. So you give media for equity deals, among other things, to startups, so they get advertising space on the ProSiebenSat.1 shows. What happens if those kind of startups who are part of your program come to you and tell you, it's all good and well, but I rather want to be featured on Sami Slimani's YouTube channel?
And I say, well, that's very good that we have Studio 71, our multi-channel network, and we just, partnered with Collective Digital Studios in the US. So it is relevant. It is relevant that you have the YouTube stars and the influencers out there, and that you have some kind of relevance there as well. But despite them being very successful, despite the millions of video views they produce a month, it's still not closely as relevant as television is. If you want to reach a big mass of people at a certain point in time, you can only do it through television or other mass media. You can't do it through YouTube or whatever, because it's just a very small percentage of the population, consuming videos on YouTube. And if you, of course, want to reach the very, very young people, then it's probably the only way to do that. But if you want to reach the 30 to 60-year-olds in Germany, then it's television, and it's the big online and offline media companies that you have to work with.
One thing I kind of observed at Gründerszene, because I'm also part of the startup scene, etc., and I was wondering how you earn money, is that you and other media companies like Wired Germany, for example, are doing much more with offline events and seminars, and actually bringing the readership, the community together offline. I don't know if that's a viable business model, or if that's some other strategy behind that. But
yeah, you're completely right. But you talk to the wrong guy, because I'm the editor-in-chief, and I have nothing to do with the business side. But in fact, it is true. Yeah. And I think this Gründerszene shows that it's actually possible to earn money with online journalism, because the core business of Gründerszene is, yes, journalism, and we're attracting a lot of people with our journalism. But our CEO, Mark, had this trick of surrounding this journalistic core with business models like Die Zeit. We have events, we have every once in a week we have like school seminars, how you say that, where we show young entrepreneurs how to set up a company, how to deal with the tax regulations in Germany and everything like that. And they're actually paying money for that. And we have a job center for young people who want to work in the startup scene. And many more of these businesses, but the core business is, to me, maybe Mark would tell it differently, but to me is is the journalism, yeah.
Yeah, but I saw that on many other media outlets are going this way, and maybe this is kind of the closing circle where we started from in this afternoon, where it's all about authenticity and actually people coming together again, and you build this kind of tribe with the content you have. You probably as well, you have people interested, like in foreign countries, interested in the German economy. That's why they read the Handelsblatt Global Edition.
Yeah, we are a niche product. We are looking for people who care about Germany and have a concrete interest in it for whatever reasons. And I think U.S. State Department estimates there's about 5 million people involved in transatlantic trade. All right, so that's not just Germany, but still it gives you an idea of the kind of potential universe that's out there. Now that sounds great, but they're not all standing on a corner waiting for you, so you got to go out and find them, and that takes a lot of effort. And there's ways to do it, but it is labor intensive. But yeah, I mean, I think like Frank was describing, you know, a lot of specialty journalism is formed around kind of creating your own entourage and living off of them, you know, having parties for them, having them talk to each other, you know, the business aspects of it, not allowing the companies who used to do that to do it, but to take that. So yeah, this is a natural evolution for a lot of journalistic companies. Handelsblatt is one. They also do Veranstaltungen here in Deutschland. I'm sure Bild does too, and Die Zeit also is very active. But you know, we preserve our editorial independence in the process. It makes it more complicated as the organizations branch out, but still, I mean, at least at us, and I'm sure at the others too, there's always a wall, you know, because you can't fool your reader. You know, if they read you, they trust you, and you can't betray that trust, because if you do it once, they'll just leave you. You know, there's too many options. So.
Yeah. And with like mainstream general interest media like ProSieben, Sat.1 and Bild.de, how do you maintain a community, which I think is very important in these days of social media? How do you make sure the right content gets to the right reader who might be really interested in that?
A toast.
Cheers.
That's quite a nice special effect. Well, first of all, we have a social media presence. That's obviously very important. And second of all, we make sure that the content gets to our, readers, users, whatever you want to call them, by producing the right content. And I completely agree with Frank here that, that is what, we talk about all that, business models and monetizing stuff and, understanding different platforms and all that. And I get all that, and I think about it probably way too much. But the truth about our profession is that we have become a scared profession. We are a wealthy profession. We're a rich profession, and we're just scared of our lifestyle. And that's why we at some point started whining about how bad things are going, how horrible everything is, how our readers are dying. That we don't. That's not a reporter's job. A reporter's job is to be rough and where the story is and one could argue poor and hungry and not driving a nice car and living in a nice apartment and watching the world from above, and that's what we've completely lost track of. So if you ask what are we doing to get this stuff to our readers, well, we're producing that stuff. We're sending reporters to our reporter Paul Ronsheimer came back from Lesbos 2 days ago. He's in Kabul now. He's with refugees. He's covering the refugee story. He has been covering the refugee story for half a year now, every single day, in the rain, in the sun, on the sea, on the shores, dead children, alive children, living children, every single aspect, and that's how we get great content. You know, we will find, you know, look at all those, you know, 17-year-olds who you know a lot about social media. I think I know a lot about social media by now. I can't match the 17-year-olds, but there are enough of them. You know, if we, you know, need people to understand social media and to get our content to, you know, through those channels to the people who consume news through those channels, I'm not worried about that. You know, I'm not worried about distribution. The distribution, you know, the distribution is as good as, you know, better than it ever has been in history. The main problem is that we're losing sight of what's our job, because we're scared, we're complaining all the time, and that is the biggest threat to journalism. You won't find a profession. If you look at the car profession, you know, look at any, you know, magazine the car industry gets out. Do they complain about how bad things are and you know, carbon dioxide and how? No, they don't. You know, we're the only industry that predicts our own death, and you know, that's a terrible mistake. We should, you know, focus on finding great stories, and our experience at Build is, you know, every time we find a great story, we get great play for it, you know, and we get great response from our readers. We have people still writing letters to us or fax, and we get great response on social media. You know, a great story will get you great response. But if you get lost in all, you know, in fear, and don't think about the great stories anymore, you know, you won't get great response from a bad story.
What's the TV point of view on that?
Well, on a more, you know, general interest and entertainment level, well, quality matters, and quality in what the viewer wants to consume, right? I mean, that doesn't mean that it's always very intellectually demanding what we are broadcasting, but that's not our job, right? Yeah, but one has to be realistic and see, you know, what we are an entertainment company. You know, we are there to entertain people, but if we only air very bad shows, then nobody watches our channels, then nobody wants to book advertising on our channels, then we don't make money. And so therefore it's very important that we have good quality content and produce the content that the viewers want. And for that, you unfortunately cannot ask the viewers what they want to see, because they would even tell you, but they don't know what they don't know. So therefore you have to try. It's a lot of trial and error. You have to produce shows, you air the shows, then it's a terrible flop. Then you have to take it off again. Then you have to create something new. And then all of a sudden you have formats that work very well, like Germany's Next Top Model or The Voice of Germany or whatever. These things work very well. And those things you need to create. But for that you need to be, you know, willing to take risks. You have to be brave, and then be lucky in the end.
I actually missing two things in journalism today. And first of all, I'm missing, it's strange to say, but I miss love. I miss love in journalism. I like to think of journalism as a you know, a thing called mixtape that you did in the 70s for your even in the 90s for your high school love, and you put like 7 or 8 hours into that, just one cassette of music, and so much love into it. And I'm missing that in journalism today. I think, as I said before, is it enough to write like 200 lines and choose 3 photos, and that's your job? I don't think so. Journalism should be like a mixtape with links, with tweets, with videos, with everything that means something to you and to your audience. It's not like a normal job, and that's why I love journalism. I can go to a meeting like this here and write 200 lines and make a few iPhone photos, and that's it. But that's not enough. And the second thing I miss is we have to care about data. The core of every business in the next 10 years will be how do you deal with data? Data is everything for every business, and we just don't care. We don't give a shit, excuse me, about data. And that's terrible.
I also wanted to just turn to the unromantic aspect of media nowadays, data, because you said it's very hard for you, probably as a TV media house, to identify what your viewers want. Companies like BuzzFeed or media houses, you might call them like Facebook, know exactly what their readers want, even though as Facebook doesn't even produce their own content. What's your strategy? Like, do you have data programs on Bild.de, Gründerszene, Handelsblatt to find out what the reader really wants?
I mean, that is that's the advantage of online journalism, that you have immediate feedback. You know exactly what people are looking at or where their fingers hovering over. You'll soon know what they wore 3 days ago while they're reading your. So I think all of our organizations slice and dice that data and look at it very carefully. I mean, I know at Handelsblatt Global Edition, because we're a niche and we're looking for specific people who care about Germany and the German economy, German politics, and I have to say the entertainment world of Berlin, because for most people outside of Germany, Berlin is Germany. You know, if they've never been here, they think Berlin is the Bühne, and that's where everything takes place. So we try and provide that window to the world because there's a lot of intense interest right now. We get immediate feedback. Our readers say if they like it, if they don't like it. It's a bracing experience because feedback is good, but expose yourself to that for 8 hours and you'll be feeling the love. But yeah, I mean.
But I mean, you can react faster in online journalism, but it's still the same concept. You write the article or the piece first, then you put it up online, and then you will get feedback and see if it worked or not. You cannot really predict the success of it before you write it. It's just faster to change it or to write something else than producing a television show. But at the same time, you have to take the risk. You have to take the risk beforehand and say, you know what, we should produce a piece on XYZ, and it's going to take 2 weeks, and we do that, and then we put it up online, and then we hope that people will like it. And then you will probably get some feedback and change something or put more stories of the same kind up if you believe the topic is of interest or whatever. But still, you have to take risk. You don't know beforehand, and Facebook is very good in analyzing what people like, but not what they will like.
No, actually, you can predict it. If you look at the data, if you look at Twitter, if you post your stories on Twitter before, you can predict it. I've seen that in the Valley. You can, through data, you can predict which story will run good and which don't. You can do it. But we can't do it. That's a problem.
So what should we do in Germany? Import Silicon Valley startups?
No, good journalism was always a combination of good journalism and technique. Bild was so important and so big because Axel Springer had 5-6 printing plants all over Germany and could actually print so many Bild-Zeitung and grew really big. Yeah, and I was at Bild too and worked as Chef vom Dienst at Bild, and we were like the techies of Bild. We knew how to produce this newspaper and what we could do with typography and photos and everything like that. And today, where are the techies now? Not in the newsroom.
They're in charge, though, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real issue, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, the industry's been based since Gutenberg. Thanks, Anders, on technology for how many hundreds of years. Now the technology is pushing itself actually in front of the content makers, and that's a real, that's an ethical issue that we all face. because sure, you can get feedback, and what does it tell you though? I mean, we posted a lengthy video of the Lage so up in Berlin and the chaos at the beginning. Just, a neutral bericht on what was going on. No, we're agnostic, politisch. And we got a lot of feedback, but a lot of it was obscene or racistisch. So what do you do then? Take it down? Hell no. No, you keep it up. But what do you do if you don't, if you don't have the resources to manage that kind of a lengthy conversation? And it was extremely lengthy, and often, you would leave the room if you heard the conversation, probably. Then you just turn it off. And in that case, that seems like a throwback, and we don't do that in all cases. But, we have to, who sets the agenda at the end of the day? Do you let the crowd do it? Sometimes you do, but I mean, I don't know. I'd ask you, gentlemen. What do you think?
Well, I would argue that comments, reader comments, in depending on the topic, in most of the cases they are either they range from not too smart to outrageous. So, I wouldn't really want to rely on that when it comes to editorial decisions. And also, they don't really qualify for data. Just stuff people write. That's not really what we'd call data. They used to write it in fax or in postcards or letters, and now it's much easier for them, which doesn't really improve the situation. They just write more, but it's clearly not data. The thing about data is it's very hip. It's great to talk about. Everyone agrees how important data is. The truth in Germany is that if you want to use data is about correlations of things, and data is about discovering, using very smart software to discover hidden links between things. That is, the word for it in Germany is called illegal. Like at Build, we can we have to delete every single cookie after 30 days. After 30 days. We don't know if someone has ever visited Build before. And, as one of the very few supporters of NSA operations in Germany, I can tell you, Germans will not allow those laws to be changed. And it's a problem for us because it, prevents us from doing like real targeting and advertising. It prevents us from really competing with operations like Facebook or Google or Amazon, because we're not legally entitled to collect that kind of data. And even if we are not. It's simply not legal in Germany to data mine that stuff and discover that in that certain part of Hamburg, people were Googling the flu. And then tweeting about buying XYZ, and that means that they want to buy a Golf Cabriolet or read about refugees. That information exists out there. It's the famous haystack. I find it totally fascinating. I would love to visit Fort Meade or the Amazon headquarters and have a look at how they do it. In parts, it would be fascinating to do it as a journalistic operation. The truth is, you can talk about it all you want. It's simply not legal in Germany, and it simply will not be legal in Germany. We have a huge data operation. We look at the stuff every day, but the truth there is, we basically look at how stuff performed in the past. We put a story out there, and say, "Wow, it went great," or and sometimes it's predictable. Like data tells us that stories on boobs always go great. I kind of knew that before. And it, data is showing us that story. The very the refugee welcome course is it's not too popular in Germany, unfortunately. I kind of knew that before, but it's looking back, and using data to look back. It's not a very revolutionary concept. So the thing about data is, I think it's very important. I think many companies in the world profit enormously from it. I think most of those companies are not based in Germany, and I think we should have a good understanding of how that stuff works and try to engage it wherever we can. I legally do not see the kind of opportunities that we are telling ourselves we have in that because for legal reasons.
We're running out of time again. I would like to close this panel with a closing question for all of you. And we're not asking you for what's going to be the next trend. We talked about the love of for content. We talked about digital business models, whatever might work, and data and technology and how it might change things. And as we mentioned previously, humans are a very important aspect of change. So I'm asking you, if you think about your successor, the next editor-in-chief of Bild.de, of Gründerszene, the next editor-in-chief of Handelsblatt Global Edition and Pro7 Accelerator, what kind of person had to walk into the room to make sure you're still going to do as great as you do now in 5 or 10 years from now?
That'd probably be my unborn son.
Why? What's your education?
Well, look, I don't. You know, the truth is, I don't really believe in the concept of editor in chief for too much longer. If we look at how media organizations are built now, it's getting way too complex. You know, that one genius guy who decides, you know, who then, you know, after a glass of wine comes up with that, you know, remarkable, maybe historic headline, you know, headless body and topless bar or whatever. You know, it's just, you know, I have to manage, like, I don't know, 12 channels now, and one of them is Snapchat. And if I look at Snapchat, it just looks fucking awful to me. But the truth is, it's got great growth. You know, I wouldn't claim that I am able to manage, you know, how Bild operates on Snapchat. So I think, you know, the editor in chief of the future has to be great at, you know, building great teams who understand platforms, and has to be great at you know, giving people that responsibility, and, you know, giving them enough space, and probably at the same time just instilling the right sense of brand into them. Like, what do we stand for? What are the 5 things we stand for? And now put that on Snapchat, whatever
so
Snapchat
an entrepreneur.
is. Sorry?
An entrepreneur in the end.
Right.
A startup.
Right.
What do the others think?
I think the next managing director of the Pro7 Accelerator should have passion for, you know, building something new and developing it into the future. And for that, I mean, that's our business model in the end: identify interesting startups early on, and then help them grow and make them more successful, and hopefully have a great success with the investments we make.
I'm kind of still waiting for a girl who is 25 years old, and she will come.
About the job now?
Yeah, and kind of. And she'll come to my office, and she would talk to me, and she will say something like, "Frank, what you are doing there is completely bullshit. You have to do it very differently, and you can't do it like that anymore, and I will show you how to do it." But it doesn't happen. Why?
I think, like you say, the next editor-in-chief, or whatever you call him, of the Handelsblatt Global Edition should understand the technology and the changes, should be fleet-footed enough to realize that the normal will be gone tomorrow, so you have to constantly reinvent, blah blah. We've heard that, but it's true. But it is, because, you know, we're always behind the curve, no matter how much we pretend. And for my product in particular, because it is a global product, they have to be truly bilingual. Trilingual would be better. Chinese would be a great asset. Any Indian language, Punjabi or whatever Hindi probably would be good. And the ability to have international cultural maturity, to understand that people consume and understand in different ways, and that the formula that works in Germany or in the States may be totally different in another, and to rely on the right people to deliver it.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for having this interesting discussion, and I'll give it over to Anders.